All right, we are live, and I'm excited to talk to Ilya today from Digital Panda. Um, you've just gotten back from Brandweek and been, running a little behind today, just as you were getting some stuff set up on your side. It's always like getting streaming stuff to work and all that type of thing. So yeah, thanks for hopping on today. When I saw you last week in Atlanta, you were talking about both what you were seeing at Brandweek and then also this new project you've launched, the Spark. So excited to be able to hear more about both.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. At Brand Week, I was just like overwhelmed with the sheer quality of conversations that we were having. A lot of the people there were, top CMOs, top agency people, North America and globally. Really, really good event.
Hmm. And just as a bit of background, I mean, Digital Panda, you've been in business, I don't know, how many years now?
We officially as an agency about 8 years. Before
Oh,
that, it was more of like a freelancer, kind of small, like making websites for people locally. So an extra 2 or 3 years on top of that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did the same thing. I mean, I freelanced for the first 6 months before being like, okay, it'll be a real thing. And I think it's a good trajectory there. And yeah, so Brand Week, I'd love to dig in. Like, how did you hear about this? How did you decide to make the trip down to Atlanta? And, what were you like? What was sort of the reason why you wanted to go to this?
So I had, I knew Adweek. It's
Yeah.
a great place where like people talk about advertising. I'm an advertising, I don't know, aficionado or whatever. I love ads. I basically, whenever I watch the Super Bowl, I really only watch it for the advertising, and then the game is kind of secondary. Um, but I had heard of Brand Week several years. They've been doing it. This was, I think, the fourth year, and I knew that it was a great place for to network and meet people. Coincidentally, a partner agency of ours, Ammunition,
Hmm.
sponsored Adweek. Ammunition is an Atlanta-based agency. I've been talking with my friend Jeremy, the CEO and founder, multiple times about trying to come down to Atlanta. What's a good time? And he said, "Well, I'm sponsoring Brand Week in November. No better time to go than." So I made the trip, and yeah, very very happy I did.
That's awesome. What were like, what was like the overarching theme that you're hearing about? You know,
I think the talks that I liked is or were around brand has to make you feel like you're the most important customer
Hmm.
um, in the world. And so one of the conversations, it was from a bunch of companies that were in the automotive space, but regardless, CMO of fairly large organizations, we're talking about um, when you walk into a store and you're the only client, uh, you're made to feel very, very special.
Hmm.
All the focus is on you. It's a job's brand and the company's brand job nowadays to make you feel that same way, but through all of the multiple channels, web, app, social, talking to you, making you feel like you're the most important thing. And if you can do that right, then you're going to be very successful as a brand.
That's funny. So Marina, who leads operations for us, she used to be a client of ours, and we've worked together for a long time. We've worked together at a previous agency, and but it's interesting when she was a client. Something that she told us was, "I don't want to hear or know about any of your other clients. All I want to know is that I am the most important group that you work with." It was something along. I'm paraphrasing, but it was, you know, kind of interesting because I mean, like I love how direct she is, but that same type of feeling of like, help make me successful. And then if you have other people that you're working with, that's great, but I don't need to worry about who else you're working with.
Yeah,
Um, and
totally.
it seems like that's, kind of good advice for anyone that's, in sales or marketing. But what do you think has changed where that's becoming more important?
I think the emergence of performance marketing as kind of the most important thing to marketers over the past 10 years, and analytics data, people as a number and identifier as opposed to as a real human being, has made people feel some sort of way about like their existence in a brand or their relationship with a brand. So whenever it's like you get an email that says, "Hey, customer," or
Yeah.
a mistake,
Yeah.
in the template, you're like, why am I even buying from you? Like, why do I even bother?
Yeah.
You can't even get that simple thing right. So trust is built over years and ruined in a second. So
Yeah. What do you think is like the practical way of, other than just being like, you know, dear so and so, and then here is an email. Like, what are the approaches that people are trying to adopt that will lead to this kind of almost one to one type of marketing approach?
I
Or what
think
were you
no.
hearing? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, knowing your customer, like listening to them.
Yep.
So many organizations, the most successful, I think, out there, have their ear to the ground, like diligently, and so they're talking to their customers, they're asking them for their opinions. You don't have to action every single opinion and idea, but if you're listening to people and you're reaching out to them and making them feel heard and seen, they're much more likely to be emotionally invested in you again, back again. And of course, you can't do that with everything, and you can't do that with every customer at scale. So how do you do that? I think, yeah, that's still TBD, in my opinion.
Yeah. I was talking with Stefan from Broworks on his podcast 2 days ago, and he asked me, "What do you think is the biggest mistake marketers make?" And I said, focusing too much on storytelling instead of story listening. And that's that same idea of, hey, before you rush out there and start blasting a message everywhere, take a moment and really understand what's happening with those customers. And today there's so many ways to listen. I think often it's referred to as, you know, data analytics or whatever, but really what you're trying to do is listen. You're trying to listen in a broad sense. Um, and think about what can be done to help shorten that distance between someone having a thing they need to accomplish and then how to be able to work with the company to do that. Um, everyone's talking about AEO and optimization. You were talking about kind of the rush towards performance marketing. Did you hear anything that felt like a pullback of that, or sort of the like what were you hearing around how to help people feel special?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of rumbling, but performance marketing is the best way to measure, and feel like a dry marketing approach, like you're using pure numbers and pure scientific data to back up, to improve an ad, to like just get that one little thing, but you don't necessarily build a strong emotional brand connection through that. I mean,
Mhm.
it's human to human. It always has been. Selling is one person selling to another person, and not a computer algorithm selling to a million people. At least it shouldn't be.
Sure.
That's kind of, I think that's what, like, that humanizing approach is what people are now wanting to come back to, especially in the age of AI and AEO, and not wanting to feel like a number. Um, I recently have been having some conversations with some people who run, let's say, very, very high level music curation systems for a very large organization that does audio, like name who, but um, the I apparently Gen Z and Gen Alpha are seeking older, more like real music from back in the day, as opposed to the new stuff that sometimes feels disconnected or synthetic. So there's definitely going to be a drive, in my opinion, for something that's way more authentic, way more real. And like AI and AI slop and everything that's created is going to be kind of pushed away, I think.
Oh yeah, I fully agree. And funny, speaking of, I don't even know what you know Jen we're on. it's Gen Alpha or Gen Y or like whatever. But my daughter, there was an article on the radio that was coming about or whatever, and they were talking about there's a number one song on the country billboards, which was AI generated, and she was like, doesn't want to have it. And it's interesting how her, and I feel like that her generation are probably more kind of like looking at this as like not a great thing. Whereas, as a Gen Xer, I'm like, oh man, there's so much cool stuff that we can do with technology, and always rushing to sort of embrace the technology, instead of like where someone who's kind of coming of age right now, like they've maybe seen the not great things about technology, or some of this stuff isn't as exciting, or they're not as enamored by it because it's just something they've grown up with, and they can already start to see some of those externalities, which is like her as an artist, like she loves to draw, she loves to create, and she's like, wow, well, if all the robots are doing all the art, then what am I going to do?
Mhm.
And I think it's yeah, it's kind of an interesting time where that human connection and real humanness is the differentiator.
Yeah. My son is 7 going on to 8 soon. And, we use Midjourney and Sora and Gemini to prompt and create these like creatures that he's so interested in.
Mm.
But obviously, he doesn't have a grasp of like, is this going to be all
Yeah.
that's possible yet? So I'm interested to see how he matures into the technology. But I know from what I've heard, most college graduates that were in software career or software degrees have a serious problem. Like they cannot find jobs because all of the people at the top don't want to hire juniors because they think that AI can somehow magically develop for them.
Yep.
So
Yep.
and that's a misunderstanding, I think, on an epic proportion. So also my opinion.
No, no. I mean, I think one of the things that I've thought about is that, hey, if AI is giving your organization an edge, then you should probably hire more, because that's just a bigger lever that you're going to be able to bring to the market. But um, yeah, and you're in Atlanta. Atlanta is a wild place. Sometimes it's said that Atlanta is not a real place. Who were some of the standout people that were talking, and what did they have to say?
Yeah, I mean, Ludacris, Chris Bridges was standout. Just hearing seeing him on stage, and him celebrating 25 years of being both a musician, an actor, an entrepreneur, and like the telling us the stages that he went through in order to be someone, and the philanthropy that he does
Yep.
was really, really inspiring. He's someone that I've listened to since he came out, since his first album, probably since he was still making mixtapes and selling them out of the trunk of his car, and every all the movies that he's watched. So it was really, really impressive, and he seems like a very down to earth,
Mhm.
um, very incredibly talented person.
What was like the theme of his talk?
So they were talking about rebuilding Atlanta, along with I think it's Tony Wrestler, the owner of the Falcons.
Okay.
I think that's his name. And they the Atlanta Falcons were purchased a few years ago, and there's a whole lot of things that are being done for the downtown core in order to make uh, both the game experience and like visitors enjoy it. And the
Okay.
thing that I learned about Atlanta is that nobody goes downtown, and only tourists go downtown, and it's dead at night. And this was like, that's why it didn't feel like a real place, because you walk outside in the like 5 p.m. and on, there's nobody on the streets. And then you go into these like pockets of areas, Buckhead and all these other areas, and it's alive and people are walking around and having dinner. So it was very, very interesting that way. Um, and then, you and I took that lime around the belt line, and that was like eye opening because I had only been in downtown until that point, and
Yep.
now I could see people running on this beautiful path, and buildings everywhere, and just construction going all around us. And so that was really, really cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, downtown is kind of where the conferences are, and there's not. And so I think, if you just come to the conference and you're like downtown, you're like, oh man, what this is so weird. But yeah, getting outside of there, there's a lot.
But it back to the, what they're doing with it, and they're building a 5 million square foot facilities and buildings and huge massive constructions in the Gulch, I think it's
Yep.
called,
Yep.
which was just used to be underground railroad, like physically underground, or like the receiving.
Yeah, so it was a connection point for all the railroads, and then there's parts of that go underground. Very different than the Underground Railroad of
Yeah,
pre-Civil War and Civil War.
yeah, yeah.
Um, However, that did go through Atlanta, but that wasn't necessarily where that came from. And yeah, what they're doing is, and that area. I mean, Atlanta has, I feel like, a city that is always evolving, and in different parts have evolved at different places. Where the Falcons are is like totally different than, like they've built this beautiful stadium there, and then now they're kind of doing the second phase of that, which is bringing more commerce and walkability and neighborhoods and things like that. So it's cool to hear that Ludacris has been involved with that, and yeah, just hearing that he's helping to push that forward, and I feel like that's a good sign for the city. But
Yeah, I
back to
think.
Adweek, what were there sort of side conversations? You mentioned going up to Buckhead, or like any after parties or dinners or things like that you went to that you thought were uh, sort of different than things that you've seen in the past or caught
I
your eye?
Yeah, we hung out every single day. There was some kind of event sponsored by the Adweek people, or sponsored by someone, but part of the Brandweek
Yeah.
experience. I think there was a Shutterstock night where it was actually like a dance party.
Mm.
They removed all the chairs, and then there was a stage, there was a DJ, and the DJ was Wyclef Jean. And so Wyclef Jean played to 200 or 300 marketing nerds and party people, and it was quite fun. He played his hits, like he sang "I'll Be Gone Till November" a cappella. Like it was incredible. And
Wow.
I was, as close as I am to this computer monitor, standing next to him, watching him sing. This guy who I'd listened to since I was a kid. Really, really cool.
That is wild. And that sounds like a pretty kind of common Atlanta thing. I remember I've been out running, like around the Chattahoochee and stuff like that, and it'll just be like, "There's Andre 3000," and he'll just be sitting there, and he's gotten back from whatever he was doing, maybe playing flute, who knows, um, and just be like hanging out. And so there's definitely all sorts of people you can run into, and then it's cool that they, had some different people come and participate within Brandweek.
To be quite honest, Atlanta, the show, is one of my favorite shows that I've ever watched, and so it was really, really amazing to connect what I saw in the show, like the spirit of that show, to the
Yep.
actual city.
What would you say is kind of coming from sort of Webflow Conf or like other conferences? Like how would someone think about Brand Week, and would you recommend it for other people? Is it overrun by agencies? Is it a good place for agencies? What are your thoughts?
Mm, There are a lot of agencies, but the agencies are a very large scale. A few experiential, mostly full service agencies working with other, large clients. So it's Omnicom people, WPP people.
Yep.
Um, uh, I would recommend it. I mean, there's no reason why, but don't look at it from a I'm going to get business perspective. Like, you're
Mm.
going there to learn. You're going there to learn what client side is looking for, what kind of discussions are happening in the brand and advertising world. We are digital experience agencies. We are the afterthought for a full brand campaign, in my experience.
Yep.
Some of us are luckier than others, where we get to participate directly in that campaign, and we can the web or motion experiences that we create impact
Mhm.
the look and feel of these campaigns. Others, they're just like, can you build us a website that looks exactly like this thing that we're doing? And those are more of like service partners. And so if your job is to make friends with advertising agencies, perfect place.
Hmm.
If you want to meet with clients and get your name out there, perfect place. But if you're trying to like sell business at Brandweek, then probably not a good idea. So that's my
Yeah. Was there anything that you are going to take back to your next RFP or response around the mentality of, what internal teams are thinking about or you know, what they're facing?
uh, I actually haven't formulated that yet. I don't know if I've digested enough of it. But just thinking about, everybody's worried about AI.
Yeah.
How is it working, and how does it, what is AEO? And that's all we hear nowadays as
Yep.
a digital experience agent. What is AEO? How can we be visible on ChatGPT, Claude, and
Yeah.
Gemini?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, write good content and
Yep.
have people talk about it in forums
Yeah.
the same way that you would be found by a human being. And AEO it will find you that way. There's no trick to it. So
I feel like and we were talking about the sort of drive to humanness. I feel like one of the things that's exciting about AEO and about AI search is that it really forces brands to, like, you've got to be super clear.
with
You
good
can't,
content,
with good
absolutely.
content, and you need to be able to have authority, and you need to be able to um, show that in a way where it's engaging and people want to look at whatever you're creating and building.
Yeah.
So I think from that regard, it sort of says like, yeah, AI slop is super easy to make, and you can go on to whatever and prompt to get a quote unquote website for your business, but that website is not going to actually know your business, because if you don't know your business and you don't know those customers, then it all doesn't matter, and then you're just in the slop and you're not going to really show up and customers won't show up.
Exactly. Yeah, great point.
Um, what, as you're kind of like thinking about next year, what would you do different going into Brand Week?
Hmm.
Cause I'm already thinking about, I'm like, man, I need to get over there. Let me phrase this another way. You've got, your friend over at Ammunition. Is that right? What were his thoughts of kind of sponsoring, or because like it sounds like they went pretty big, and man, I feel so bad because like they're here in Atlanta. I've never even we I was looking up his profile. I can't remember who's the founder.
Jeremy Halpern.
Jeremy, yeah.
Yeah.
He came up doing Flash design and development, and
Yeah.
had worked at some similar agencies that I was familiar with. And so I was like, oh man, we were probably like at the same macro media users group meetings and stuff like that. Like, um, what anything that Jeremy has said around their participation or
Yeah. I mean, the ROI is yet to be determined, right?
yeah,
Long term. But if you think about it, they were plastered on everything, including the lanyards. And when you're on the lanyard, I think it's pretty cool because that's as visible as it gets.
yep,
People who had never heard of ammunition were now like, who is ammunition? So it got the conversation started, and it definitely, like, ammunition is growing into like a real serious global,
hmm.
possibly agency. And I'm very proud of them for it. So
Do you work with a lot of agencies, like a lot of ad agencies, or what's the type of work you
yeah,
guys are tackling?
sometimes not so much.
Yep.
We have supported our partners, so we're part of Worldwide Partners Network,
Okay.
WPI. So it's a
Hmm.
it's a collaborative agency network, similar to Soda and a few others.
Okay.
Um, so we have worked with our partners, either helping them with their own websites or participating in RFPs for their clients
Hmm.
on the digital side. So there's a lot of collaboration that way that we've done, and then we've participated. We've helped do some work for some larger agencies, like Holdco size agencies, from time to time, which was fun.
Mm.
And yeah, we continue to kind of support if necessary, but it's never really been like a target of ours.
Okay. Yeah. When I started, I thought I was like, oh, if I can plug in and be a subcontractor for these other agencies, then that'll be like our business. Because at my last agency, we had some different companies that we would work with, and I think that's a way to potentially get started. But something I noticed is that really quickly it was just easier to work directly with clients because like our process would be different than whatever the kind of the other agency would be, and I'd be
Yeah.
like, our process is better, you know, only because like a lot of I feel like web dev is all about and design is about like that collaboration and communication, and if you start to layer in too many, um, you know,
Managers.
yeah, well, it's just like these approval gates and stuff like that.
Mm.
Like it's like it's like, oh, we've got to get it improved internally before we do something in it. So anyway, that's a bit of a
I mean,
tangent.
yeah, my background was not agency. Ran software development teams, and then I also did UX UI.
Mm,
So I just put them all together, and I'm like, why don't I just try to create an agency?
yeah,
Um, and so I had no idea like what large agencies do, what their operations are like, why like approval processes and red tape and all this account management stuff. I had no idea. So like over the past 8 years, I've been learning and continue to learn.
yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like you know, I came from the agency world, or I worked in large global agencies and mid-size, kind of like local agencies. But when I started, like, I had no I'd never, been a project manager or account manager or, created a contract or done all that other stuff. And so I feel like, yes, it's helpful to be able to have an understanding of craft and skill there. But then it's like, now it's like, oh, you got to do everything and you got to figure out the whole thing.
Oh, the
So,
entrepreneurship is a whole nother thing. Yeah, for
oh
sure.
yeah. And that's like whole other side of it. Well, I'd love to spend some time talking about Spark. So this is a project you launched while you were at Brandweek.
Yes.
And like, what what's been the reception? What are your thoughts? And what is Spark?
Uh, All right. So, well, let's start with what it is. So, Spark was kind of this idea that we had when we were talking about redesigning our own website. We realized that we have a lot of enterprise clients, fintech, banks, like blockchain,
Yeah.
large scale organizations. Um, they're not so used to looking at super fancy scrolling websites with 3D coming out of every single hole. Um, and we decided to split the website into basically two experiences.
Hmm.
This is what we do, this is who we are, these are the projects that we've done, enterprise focus, and
Yep.
then mid-size enterprise focus, and then like this is the crazy shit that we can do.
Yep.
And like this is like how we can push web technology to its limits. And so the Spark came out of that. Um, Originally it was just a like, what kind of scrolling experience can we create? What kind of story can we tell?
Yeah.
We had the team ideate over a couple of weeks. And then Murillo, our lead 3D slash, game design expert, um, created the storyboard. And the
Hmm.
storyboard was of this like futuristic Neo Tokyo style derelict city where robots control all thought and all process. Creativity is banned.
Well,
Do not
while you're
think.
talking, let me just bring it up if that's all right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, this will probably um be easier because yeah, it's just gorgeous, and I love um the richness of the experience. And so I'm gonna do. Oh, hold on. Let me share this screen. Hopefully, hopefully everything doesn't slow down too much. We'll see. All right.
Sure. Well, We've
Can you see?
definitely pushed the envelope on the technology aspect of it. So, yeah, so we tried to tell people like right away, this is sophisticated online scrolling experience, and it's basically it's pushing what's possible, and so expect your computer to melt.
Yeah, I love it. Well,
Um,
I was also thinking about running this with Riverside, because Riverside can sometimes unexpectedly slow down.
so
So,
far, so good. So basically you start off and when you start, like the explosion happens, and the explosion is like has brought the spark back to life, and the tracking system now sees that there's a glitch, and it's transcoding on the bottom left. You can see it's transcoding the output of that glitch,
hmm,
and as it falls, it meets with our hero, the Digital Panda, of course, who
of
catches that
course.
spark,
Yeah.
and begins to guide him through the city to safety. So over the course of the development of this thing, like, we started adding CRT effect. Um, at first, it was like, should we just add the interlace because it fixes a lot of how the visuals look, and then it became like an aesthetic part. So it's like it's beautiful, and we love how it makes it feel like a 90s TV show. um, a lot of the texturing was done in Midjourney, so it was prompted. So we prompted and created all of these scenes, and then did projection mapping over top of the fairly simple boxes and shapes.
Hmm.
Then we weren't satisfied. We were like, okay, this is looking a little sloppy. We ran it through Magnific to improve the quality of the textures. So we upscaled it, and then improved the textures. And then afterwards, we went through Photoshop and added minor details like text and graffiti and little
Hmm.
icons all over, so that it really makes it come to life. Because obviously AI, it's going to write all sorts of nonsense BS all over
Yep.
the place. And if you go through like this scene in particular, you'll see like quite a lot of subtle Easter eggs.
Hmm.
Then we get to this scene. So this is the fight. They're done running. They're now cornered, and they're ready to stand up for themselves. So we decided to make this one just purely cinematic. You don't actually control it. You don't animate it, and then you just let it play out.
Hmm.
And we get back to a world of freedom. So balance has become restored. If you notice, the UI has also changed from this like very Unicode terminal style uh, robot design to something much more organic and fluid and round shaped.
Hmm.
Um, and that was our idea of like showing progress from the AI like overlords to the freedom of human creative expression. Uh, and they have a little dialogue at the end, and it says like, like we've only just lit this one fire. It's your turn to like spread the news, and it's time for me to go home and go back to the beacon and spread the word. Um, and possibly there's an opportunity for part two to this story. So
That's amazing. It's just so beautiful. It's really,
thank you.
really so lush. Congratulations. And I know that this was, a labor of love. Like it's one of those things where you just have an idea and you're like, I just got to get this idea out into the world.
That's
So
exactly what it was. We just like, John Lasseter is all about storytelling. We started with a story first, and we built on top of that. And, maybe hopefully Pixar is an inspiration to many people like ourselves. Um, yeah, so the reception has been pretty good, at least on LinkedIn. I've shared it with as many places as I can, and submitted it for some cool stuff, and we'll see how it comes out. But it's only a weekend.
that's incredible. Um, well, I'd love to kind of peek behind the curtain. You'd mentioned some of the stuff that you were doing in terms of, having Photoshop where you're kind of like adding on little things and then using Midjourney and then doing projection mapping onto some simple shapes. So
Yep.
that projection mapping, I would imagine you have kind of like a simple city and then you're just taking like a raw JPEG and wrapping that around the
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
the
So some of the textures were, and we can see if I can pull something up here.
yeah, see if you can get something to work on your side. I'll stop sharing. Got to make sure that I don't hit the leave button, which is right next to the share button.
That's always
It's,
fun.
yeah. Um,
Okay. So just see. So I'm going to bring up how we built this. So we built this using a tool called cables.gl.
okay.
Cables.gl is a node-based WebGL development tool created by two awesome guys in Germany named Tom and Stefan, and they used it themselves to as a development agency, and then they just released it to the world, and then like everyone can use it, and it's probably one of the best and most powerful tools I've found next to Webflow, because Webflow doesn't do WebGL or shader graphics. So
You were telling me this as we were like driving around Atlanta. Do you have something you could just pull up? I'd love to see what
yeah,
these. I was calling it
absolutely.
pipes. It's not pipes. It's
Yeah, absolutely. So this in essence is the cables workspace.
okay.
So over here we have everything running. This is the actual like visual of it, and then
Wow.
some outline and details over here. Um, it's a bit messy. I apologize. I haven't cleaned my room in a while.
No,
Um,
no. I love just like yeah, being able to see
so I
what is on the backside. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started everything with like creating the scroll container, creating the transition container and transition controller, so that we can move between transitions. And for those who understand WebGL stuff, like image compose, draw image, these are all standard functionality like in WebGL that's just redeveloped for easy understanding for most people. And then effects on top of that. So an image compose can have multiple effects that are chained. So these all influence this guy, and then it outputs an image, and we can actually view that somehow. I'm not sure why I don't see my. Oh, I see. So if you look over here, it's highlighted instead of popped out. And I think that's a setting that I have to change in cables. I was just playing around with it a couple of days ago, but basically you see the texture over here.
Okay.
Um, and so as the texture moves through the pipes, the cables, it changes from just the visual to adding like dither and glitch noise and chromatic aberration. And all of that is programmatically controlled by various things. So I can, like, as I'm holding it, the longer I hold it, the more the effect
Mm,
takes shape. That's
wow.
just one thing. So, but let's take a look at the scene. So we have the scene itself, which is controlled by scrolling.
Okay.
Within the scene, we have
And
robots.
and that scene is what is that?
It's a
Like
GLTF, so it's a GLB scene,
okay.
which is over here.
Okay.
So this GLB is has a structure. It has multiple groups. This is just the way that we named them, but the groups can be. So we can show you, for example, like I can show and hide some of the groups. I think, or how did I? Where are they? 1, 2. Yeah. So here's like just showing and hiding the various groups.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. So you can just like have, just as you would in Figma, like layers that are appearing and disappearing. And
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
And
And
then,
so, yeah, so this is put together in Blender and then exported as a GLB.
okay.
And I have control over each mesh and model within it. I can Marullo, our 3D lead, put together all of the texture mapping. And so he just provides myself with a texture,
Mm.
which I can then connect. So this texture, like these are
Mm.
all textures of the buildings. And then I can connect them to the material group
Okay.
and then just apply the material back to this guy. Um, and I've been learning this for about 2 years. So what I've learned over these years is like exponentially more than what I started with.
Mm.
But now I know that you can not only just push materials in, but you can actually control individual nodes of the building. So for example, as we scroll through, you'll notice that there's this now gray kind of color behind, and that's
Mm.
controlled via one of the lights. So these light colors, uh, like this one, is pushed into a light material, and then the same is done at the bottom. And then it's
Wow.
like depending on how fast. So on top of that, the city, we also had the robots animated, which you saw at the top, and then we had the characters. So just going to the characters. The characters we created as T-posed and then had fully animated by a character animator that we brought on for this project. She did an amazing job of creating very fluid and lifelike, and emotional animations.
Okay.
Um, all of this controls these three. So, for example, I can show and hide the eye on the right, on the left. That's just the way. And then the body,
Yeah.
just the eyes. All of this stuff can be done. And here's the star. Um, all sorts of things. And we have our textures for the characters in an array. And the reason why I did this in this way is so that I can repurpose them on all of the other scenes that I launch. So the way that I did it from a technical perspective is I built 6 separate scenes
Hmm.
and I only play them. So scene 1, scene 2, scene 3,
Yeah.
scene 4. This is not something that I created that is shareable to other people. So I just did it like how
Yeah.
convenient it was for me
Yeah.
as a sole developer. But I basically only action. So the yellow is like the power or the energy, if you will, of
Okay.
how it runs. It is only running when the scene is changed during scene change. And there's a specific reason for that so that I can like render this to a texture and then apply
Yep.
it over here. Or when it's equal to the current scene. So we'll see that right now, scene 2 is not running, not shown, but it's being rendered to this texture. And this
Ah.
texture is preparing for the transition. Now you'll see that scene 2 is running and
Yeah.
scene 1 is not. So scene 1 is now dead.
Hmm.
This obviously is for performance sake.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
don't want multiple things running at the same time. It's going to kill the GPU. Um, we have a camera, and the way that the animations work is the camera is animated on scroll. So um, we have a progress indicator, scene 2 progress, scene 3 progress, scene 4 progress, as well as a current progress for some of the other actions that I've done. But basically, scene 2 progress is controlled by the HTML scroll wrapper. There's like a window, like a div within a div, and then based on that scroll position, we're getting the value of that and then passing it into the WebGL as a number. And then I can map range is a mapping value. So I can, from 0 to 100, I can change this value from 0.12 to zero point 0.5. It applies to almost anything. So
Hmm.
it's almost like a mathematical equation, right? So I only want the camera to move this much when the scene progresses from 0 to 100. And you can do the same for timeline. So I only want the timeline to play from 1 second to 3 second when scene progresses from 0 to 100. The color to change from RGB
Yeah.
0 to RGB 255 when I move from 0 to 100. All of these things can be used within that map range function, and it's very, very powerful, in my opinion.
Wow. No, it's
And
incredible.
then,
And what's wild too is, I mean, like you just taught yourself this in the middle of doing all of your, other work and coordinating projects and selling stuff and getting, so like what, like, how did you find the time, or what was that like?
uh, well, you just find the time, I guess, when
Yeah.
you're just so passionate about something. I hate relying on other people to do creative, like technology work. I have an amazing design team. I have an amazing development team. But it's always been hard to convince like developers to learn like very fancy visual stuff because
Mhm.
it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's complex. But myself being a visual person and a technical person at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't want to rely on a technical person to get my visual concept across. So I really wanted to teach myself first, and then from there, I could inspire my team to learn more about this platform and just WebGL and 3JS and 3D in general, which I think I have. I quite a few of my team are like really interested in learning more, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started with, and I can just kind of exit here. Let me just find another thing. So I started with experimentation.
Oh,
And I can go back to the very first experiments that we did and go all the way back here. And I think it was like the scroll test.
oh,
And the scroll test was basically
wow.
like you scroll and it moves. Um, and so let's see. So mouse wheel goes up and down, delta sum goes over here.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I guess I was messing around with this quite a bit. Oh yeah. So clear. So I turned off clear. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Right. So I'm like moving up and down, but I have the ability to change the speed as well. I can make it faster,
Hmm.
or I can change it in the delta sum, multiply by 5.
Wow.
And then I learned, I learned, for example, so we saw that there was like some uh, stuff happening with the trails. I learned just a few months ago how to like copy into another image compose so that you can, I can probably do this live if you want. Uh,
Sure. I'd go for it.
so like we want to render a texture. So we render it through texture and then and then it gets passed over here. Okay. So now, okay. So that's basically the same thing. However, um, we want to then go copy texture. It's just for sake of fun. And then draw an image. So we'll go over here, here. All right. So then what we can do is, I think I'm not doing this right. Oh yeah.
Well, it's cool just that, you've got this visual environment to work with something as complex as WebGL, because I mean, I've always sort of been a
Boom.
bit intimidated to try to, jump into WebGL and things like that.
Same. Yeah,
And
exactly. But if you know, yeah, so then we can go, all we have to do is just change,
wow, look at that.
right?
That's so cool.
And that's something that I just learned recently. And then you of course have all of these effects. So then you can,
Wow.
it's just like just crazy stuff. And it's very lightweight, very performant.
Now, how would this integrate with, say, Webflow? Would you use like a code component or just embed the, like, is there an iframe? Like, what would you do here?
Yeah, it embeds as a JavaScript file. That's
Okay.
the easiest way. That's the way that you can tie it into it's all compiles into JavaScript. So
Okay.
you put it into JavaScript. You can expose the variables, and then you can tie them into all sorts of other things that you do in Webflow. If you like, have custom code and you action things. Yeah, it's super powerful.
Well, and I know you said you built the UI in Webflow and
Yes.
then had this over top of it, which is really cool too.
Yes, so I built the the UI in Webflow with like scenes, and then I used data variables, which I exposed from the cables part. So every time that you change the scene, the body had a data variable that was added to it. That was like, or sorry, a data attribute
Okay.
that was added to it, and the attribute, it was like data scene, and then I could control like, you know like with this scene in CSS, just like
Got
show
it.
or hide this UI. It's
Oh,
pretty easy.
that's awesome. Well, Ilya, thanks for walking me through that. This is incredible and really eye opening, and also just cool to hear about, Brandweek. I'll get some clips together of this. This is so cool. I know that there's a lot of people on our team that are going to be interested, and I'm sure that there's going to be follow-up questions because this is like a whole other thing that I've never looked at. And
Yeah.
it's cool to see like what you guys built, but then also like almost just as cool to see like how you built it. And like, I feel like the way that you approached this was like really innovative. And I appreciate having the sort of like deterministic spirit to be able to be like, oh, I just want to, figure this out and I want to be able to see how it works. And I want to be able to sort of like have that tactile sense or that tactile connection to the work.
Yeah. I mean, my dad, who was a CEO of a tech company for many years, taught me that if you want to be the leader of a company or anything, you have to know every single position in the company and how to do it yourself. So I just need to know
Yeah.
how to do
Yeah.
things
Well, at least a little bit of everything.
a little
So,
bit. Yeah, you can't beat it.
awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on and sharing this. And as I said, I'll get some clips together for you. And um, yeah, but just good to catch up. And I will see you on Slack.
Great to see you. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Talk to you soon. Okay.